Planning Committee, excellent. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the Yalaka Willem clan of the Boonwurrung and traditional owners of other lands we meet from today. We pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to this land. It's going well. Tonight we welcome back councillors. I need this one because it's a master one. Tonight we welcome back councillors, officers and how's that? All right. Okay. Tonight we welcome back councillors, officers and members of the public into the town.
Apologies, councillors. We might just take a quick break before we actually start properly, to address these tech issues so that we can ensure that everyone can speak. Please bear with us while we get venues to address the situation. Am I on mute still? Oh no, I'm just quiet.
Testing, 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 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 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 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 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 1, 2. Let's see. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3. Hey, Beck. Testing, 1, 2, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, 1, 2.
Testing, testing. Okay, thank you for your patience, everybody, particularly in the gallery and also my fellow councillors, as we sorted out this issue. We will now be using a handheld mic, I think, to sort this out. So, we've welcomed everybody. We have acknowledged country, and I was getting onto the part in the script that says, tonight we welcome back councillors, officers and members of the public into the Town Hall, albeit under strict conditions. Some officers and members of the community will continue to participate virtually via the WebEx platform as we undertake a new hybrid style of meeting. This meeting is being streamed via Council's webcast page. Whilst we operate in an online mode, there always remains the risk of technical issues, funny that, arising that are beyond our control. If we experience difficulties tonight, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time, as we did just before, to resolve the issue. So moving on to the first item, apologies. Councillors, I don't believe we have any apologies, as we are all present here. Moving on to minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, the minutes of the Planning Committee held on 26th of August 2020, all that time ago, have been circulated. Are there any questions regarding these minutes? If not, can I have a motion to confirm these minutes? Councillor Crawford to move, Councillor Bond to second. Do you wish to speak? No? I will now put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item number 3, declarations of conflicts of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at tonight's meeting? I note there are none. Item number 4, public question time and submissions. We will now hear all public questions and comments on report items from members of the public. All requests to speak were required to be submitted by 4 p.m. this afternoon. At the time of registering to speak, submitters were given the option to join the WebEx meeting virtually and ask their questions live during the meeting, or have an officer read their statement on their behalf. The officer reading the statement may summarise the statement if it's a long one. We have a significant number of speakers this evening, so in line with our governance rules, I will ask speakers to keep their presentation to 2 minutes each. I know we normally have 3 minutes, but given the number of speakers, we'll cut it down to 2. And please try and refrain from making points that have already been made by other speakers. Councillor Bond, is that a point of order?
I was just going to say, if councillors have questions of some of the speakers here tonight, for example, the applicant, when is the appropriate time for us to ask that question of the person? Is it while they're speaking or when we get to the item?
Good clarifying question. So there will be one block of all of the members of the public, including objectors and applicants, that will speak. However, councillors will ask their questions at councillor question time. So we would hope that there would still be people available to answer those questions by the time we came to councillor question time. But good question. So as I said, we'll try and limit speaking to 2 minutes. So I will begin with item 6.1, 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. I call upon Richard Kneebone, who is speaking on this item, I believe virtually. Richard Kneebone, do we have you?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can. So, Richard, can you please state your name and suburb for the record?
So, Richard Kneebone, Albert Park. I've got 2 points to make on 1 Victoria Avenue. Firstly, we object to the demolition of the existing building. VCAT has found the building not structurally unsound to such an extent that it should be demolished. And that demolition is only justified if a suitable replacement building is found to support the heritage significance of the area. And particularly, a developer should not be able to gain an advantage in seeking demolition when it has done nothing to maintain the building since it was purchased a few years ago. And it's understood that the Victorian Government is currently addressing this issue. Secondly, the current building's historic heritage history, design and relevance is well documented, and its special qualities enhance its structure as an important landmark in its dominant position at the junction of Victoria Avenue, Bridport Street, Merton Street and the surrounding area. The proposed replacement building does not support the ongoing significance of the area, nor provide a net community benefit, nor advance the cultural and heritage significance of the building it's replacing. The design proposal shows the provision of 11 and up to 13 serviced apartments apparently designed to cater for the short-term stay market, which is currently over-provided for in the surrounding area. For example, a search of Airbnb shows at least 300 dwellings available for short-term lease, many with car parking provided. This short-term hotel-type accommodation mix, along with the proposed substantial cafe, restaurant, tenancies and retail, is inappropriate on this site, which is situated at a busy major intersection of 5 roads with a roundabout controlling access, 2 tram stops and a busy tram line, an overcrowded primary school opposite the site and a residential area abutting the premises. Access and parking will well be a major issue. In summary, this proposal does not meet the Port Phillip planning scheme's objectives, particularly for its failure to provide stable residential accommodation, and because for its size, scope and potential impact, it is not a suitable replacement building and accordingly does not support or enhance the ongoing heritage significance of the area. Now my points, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Richard, and I believe well timed. I now call upon David Brand, former colleague of mine, speaking to item 6.1, 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. David, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please.
Thank you very much. David Brand from St Kilda. And as you know, I'll find this impossible to stick to 2 minutes, but I will do my very best. I'll whiz through every talking point and maybe read the last 3/4 of a minute at the end.
David, if you could speak directly into the mic, that might help a bit more.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Now I can't see what I'm reading. Okay. I'm here to urge you to vote to refuse this application. There's a whole lot of arguments that have been brought out, but including the fact that VCAT has actually not declared this building that this building is structurally unsound and could be demolished. They've just left that question open. They've presented the evidence. So it is not even structurally unsound yet, but they have made a decision which linked the quality of the replacement building to our consideration of how structurally unsound the building would be, or whether it would be able to be demolished. And it's a very strange decision, which is based on some common sense. They're saying that there must be a place somewhere, there must be a level somewhere of a replacement building which is of such great quality and desirability that would make you think that maybe all of the onerous conservation requirements wouldn't be necessary. This has opened up another front that we would have to fight this. It's not just fighting it on the whether it's structurally unsound or not. Now the quality of the building has got some sort of measure or some sort of weight in the question of how structurally unsound it is. And it's a really important decision to make because it's quite a dangerous decision, because it's saying, for instance, if the building is just adequate, an adequate replacement building as a suitable building, there may be a question about whether that would, anything at that level would start reducing the requirement or the necessity for requiring it not to be demolished. I'm saying that I think that what VCAT the VCAT decision was clearly intended still to keep an extremely high bar of the requirements that are needed to be passed before we would allow the demolition of a building. You know how difficult it is to get permission to demolish a heritage building. We make it extremely hard, and this is what has shored up the entire heritage area of Albert Park and in fact the whole of the city of Port Phillip, that it is very, very hard to demolish period fabric. Now we have something which is connecting in
David, I'll ask you to come to the end, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me read my last minute out. If we now allow a merely suitable replacement in an ordinary suitable replacement to be the benchmark of a heritage conservation requirement, it will immediately bring the standard of heritage protection crashing down. And that's the heritage protection which we've relied on to this point. Setting the standard of a new suitability test for heritage protection in this city is sitting in your hands as councillors tonight. The development proposal in front of you will instantly become the model, the template, the architectural standard for all suitable replacements for the difficult to conserve historic buildings. If mediocrity is the benchmark set here tonight, then our whole heritage protection will be severely undermined.
Okay, I'm sorry, David, we've let you go on. It would be unfair to the other speakers to let you go much further, but I think you've made your point very eloquently.
Can I say just one sentence? I urge you to vote against it, but if you have any doubts about, you've read my summary anyway, if you have any doubts about it, please vote for refusal, because it'll go to VCAT anyway, and council, we, the community, and through council, need to be able to argue for this point, that the quality of the replacement needs to be much higher before we would allow anything. We need to be able to argue that point in VCAT and not be in a position where we've already preempted that and bound ourselves to the opposite.
Thank you, David.
Pleasure indeed.
Point well made. Okay, I call upon Peter Kenny speaking to item 6.1, 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. I believe Peter will be coming through virtually.
Yes, my name's Peter Kenny. I'm at 40 Merton Street, Albert Park. The purpose of my speaking this evening is to reinforce what's absent from the planning report submitted in conjunction with this permit application this evening, and that is a complete failure to consider the requirement that this building has to be shown to be requiring demolition before any consideration of any other building can take place. VCAT, in its earlier decision, made it quite clear, crystal clear. And I asked councillors to read points 79 on page 21 through to 102 on page 25 of the VCAT decision to see that what they were saying was that, in essence, the existing building is of heritage significance, and in accordance with the objectives of the scheme, its retention should be encouraged. The existing building, or at least substantial parts of it, can be restored, albeit at a high cost. What's occurred since the VCAT decision is a complete lack of repair or any form of concern or care for the building. The building has had its upstairs window jammed open to allow the elements in. It's allowed a down part to fall away and not be put back up or replaced, and has just been allowed to denigrate further and further, which was what the worry was at VCAT. I don't see how, under any equitable jurisdiction, a council can give to a developer, through their own willful neglect, a permit to pull something down which they could have and should have been preserving. To reinforce this, the state government has now introduced legislation which has now had its second reading in Parliament. And Parliament has decided that anyone who fails to maintain a heritage-listed building will not be able to get a permit for its demolition, and it will be put out for 10 years. I believe that council needs to be very conscious of the fact that this legislation is shortly to be passed, and they should not be making decisions in flagrant disregard for this statutory overriding of the issues at hand with this particular building. It is quite obvious that this building has not been cared for by previous owners and the current owner, and it is just completely contrary to planning policy and public policy to allow someone who, by their own neglect, is able to then profit by having an application for it to be demolished. I have no concern or comment to make about the replacement building. It begs the question. The question is, this is a heritage building. It should be maintained. Everyone agreed at that at VCAT, and here we have a situation where in the council's planning report, no mention is made whatever of the circumstances of what's occurred by way of repair and maintenance. And any visiting person to the site today will see that it has further degraded through the deliberate inaction of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. I now call upon Andrea Zohar, the applicant, speaking to item 6.1, 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. Andrea, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please.
Andrea Zohar, Caulfield North. Good evening, councillors. My name is Andrea Zohar. I'm from SJB Planning and act on behalf of the permit applicant. This site was subject to a previous VCAT decision which refused a 4-storey mixed-use building. The current application has been carefully designed to respond to the guidance outlined in that decision. This has effectively been confirmed in the Council Officer's report, which is recommending the proposal be approved subject to very few changes. With regards to heritage, I respectfully refute the claims by other objectors tonight that the tribunal decision stated otherwise, and I would refer you to the detailed assessment undertaken by the Council Officer on this point. The tribunal found that the existing building is structurally unsound and its demolition was accepted. However, the tribunal took issue with the replacement building. We have worked very hard with Council's planning officer and urban designer to address this. The current building is of a high architectural quality and thereby satisfies the heritage requirements of the planning scheme that a replacement building is acceptable in that it positively supports the ongoing heritage significance of the area. The height of the building is now at 3 storeys with a clear 2-storey street wall that respects the village feel. In terms of impact, the tribunal never took issue with any impact on neighbouring properties. Amenity was deemed acceptable. The building is proposed to be used for 9 service departments, which will give a positive contribution to the services and land uses of the existing neighbourhood centre. It will also add vibrancy to the ground floor and an improvement of the streetscape. The permit applicant has worked very hard to resolve all the matters raised in the tribunal decision and those raised by council during this planning process. On that basis, we believe the proposal is worthy of approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And as far as I know, that's all of the speakers for 1 Victoria Avenue. So we'll move on to the speakers from the public for 343 to 345 Beaconsfield Parade. So I call upon Sandy Probert speaking to item 6.2, 343 to 345 Beaconsfield Parade, St Kilda West. Sandy, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please. Oh, that doesn't appear to be on. You may need to state that again because I don't think that mic was on.
Sandy Probert, St Kilda West. I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Crawford and Deputy Mayor Pearl for your time in responding to my emails and requesting further information by way of visual images of the property at hand. I'd also like to take a very special mention to all of the councillors who took the time to attend the property. As you know, it's quite an emotional issue for all of the residents who reside in this property, and we really appreciate the fact that you did actually take the time to come and have a look at the property. You'll be relieved to know that you won't be seeing my name in your inboxes anymore after tonight, so that's a good thing for you. As you saw when you visited the property, the courtyard is a very unique property. Everyone who walks through the doors, be they family, friends, trades and councillors, always go, wow, we had no idea this was here. Merely driving past or walking past on the street does not give you any hint as to the oasis that sits behind the streetscape and the 3 townhouses who are the applicants tonight. This is the reason so many people buy into the property and stay. This is for many of us, as it is for me, our forever homes. There are some people who have been in this property, as the profile that I sent you states, that there's people who've been there for 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. So it is our forever homes for a lot of us. Tonight you're going to have the opportunity to put the face to some of the people who live and love in this unique building. To say that we are horrified that the townhouses have submitted this planning application is an understatement. This design clearly benefits 3 owners, but to the detriment of 59 owners. Where is the justice in that? The application grossly understates the impact of such a design. The application will not have minimal impact as portrayed by the applicants, but will have significant impact and is totally unacceptable to the majority of the owners. In making your determination tonight, I do hope that you take into consideration the concerns of those who are about to speak to you, and I'm going to just finish off here and hand it over to the next speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. I now call upon Judith Timoshenko, speaking also to item 6.2, Beaconsfield Parade. Judith, if I could get you to state your name and suburb for the record before beginning.
Yeah, hi, I'm Judith Timoshenko of St Kilda West. I'm Judy Timoshenko from apartment 44, and I wish to speak to object to the planning application of 327/2020. We purchased our property, Unit 44, in the South Building and have enjoyed the benefits of this property for 26 years. We are directly opposite the east wall of Unit 1, and if you'd like to refer to page 7 of our photos, you'll see where our unit is. And with this development proposal, I am concerned that the increase in the structure size and the new roof line immediately in front of our home will create a feeling of being boxed in. The 3 townhouse properties, 2 of which have tenants, are able to further improve the enjoyment of their property, which will have a direct negative correlation to the impact of our property, and this cannot be denied. We are dismayed that the owners of the townhouses did not follow strata process in submitting their formal request to the Owners Corporation for a planning permit prior to applying to the council. And we now have to rely on objecting to council to have our voices heard. This is unacceptable to all owners. As there will be changes to the roof line, while it appears that the view from the street has been a strong consideration throughout this application for the Planning Department, the roof is a significant structure for all owners who overlook it, and it will now be more bulky. While a privacy screen will be installed at either townhouse end, my daily living area will directly look onto it, creating a real barrier to my current pleasant outlook. The privacy screen will be in the colour monument, which is a new colour to the Owners Corporation colour palette and has not been agreed to by the Owners Corporation. The proposed rendering cladding is a new element to the end walls, which will require ongoing maintenance costs by all owners as it is common property. In the council response, there was a mention of landscaping. Why doesn't the council suggest a living garden from the rooftop down the side and back walls to create a more pleasing aesthetic to the residents' eyes than just the new bulkier structures? Some 70 objections were received by council, and you are not acknowledging the social impact to everyone living here. In this day of COVID, your home is your haven.
Judith, I'll ask you to come to the end.
Okay. With regards to the aesthetics of our property, all owners are voting ratepayers, and we would like to be given greater consideration than visitors to the area. It states in your planning document that you can refuse on key issues. We'd like to know what those key issues are. And I conclude by saying we have not had the opportunity to manage this application at an Owners Corporation level. Maybe the council should consider requesting the Owners Corporation approval prior to considering any strata development. Therefore, I ask the councillors to consider this application very carefully for the benefit and impact of all owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. I now call upon Brian Jones, speaking to item 6.2 as well. Brian, I hope you know the drill as well, just your name and suburb.
Happy for me to remove that? I can remove that? Yep. I have to bring it down a bit, short ass. So first of all, I'd just like to thank the councillors, the Madam Mayor and Deputy Mayor for listening to us tonight. And thanks for the opportunity in speaking. My wife, I'll get straight to it. My wife, Kerry, and I purchased our unit in the spring of 2005 as initially an investment property. The day of inspection was a glorious spring day with blue skies and no wind. We thought, wow, is this what it's like in St Kilda every day? The minute we walked out on the balcony, we decided we'd put an offer in. During the sales pitch, the real estate agent outlined the details of strata tile ownership and how we were governed by rules and regulations set down by the body corporate. Amongst those details, I do recall him telling us could be no change to the structural geometry of the complex. Basically, outlook can never be built out. This sealed the deal. Within a day, we were the new owners. We now move forward some 16 years. During that period, at times, it's been our home, my adult children's home, and now my grandkids' holiday home. They love nothing more than staying at Pops and frolicking in the swimming pool, regardless of the temperature. We are now retired and we call the courtyard our forever home. We have substantially invested both financially and emotionally into our home, replacing walls and bifold doors, replacing windows to improve and enhance the livability of our apartment. We love the reaction from family and friends when seeing our improvements, which effectively bring St Kilda into our lounge room, the quintessential St Kilda. Catani Gardens, palm trees, yachts, beach and bay. We can't quite believe that if this development goes ahead, we will now basically be staring at the back of 3 sea containers stacked end on end. This proposal not only impacts on us, it devastates us. Not a day goes by without us looking out and imagining what we may lose. Look, we don't begrudge anybody wanting to make improvements to their lifestyle and increase their assets. That is their right. But when that impacts on the visual, social and economic status of other residents of the courtyard that they share, we feel is incredibly unjust and immeasurably distressing. Therefore, we object to the development proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. And well timed. I call upon Paul Martin, speaking to item 6.2. Are we able to adjust the microphone for Paul?
Good evening, councillors. My name is Paul Martin from St Kilda West. I'm representing 3 units at our courtyard tonight, Unit 25, 55 and 59. I've resided at the courtyard since 2009, and me and my ex-wife Claire own Units 25 and 55. My main point to start with is on Unit 25, where my ex-wife now lives. This unit faces the back of the block, so the east side. Does not have a balcony as well. So the area of the pool, which you look to the submission on page 4, is a massive area for her for her own enjoyment because there's no balcony. She likes to get out there and just be in that courtyard in what it was made to be. You can see the blue skies. You don't want any more buildings encroaching over you, and it's quite distressing for her and for our economics as well that area is going to now be encroached on even more with this visual bulk that's just going to devastate the pool area. I'm also here representing my neighbour and friend Peter, who has been a resident of the courtyard since 1982, so that's 39 years. Probably older than most of the people here. Peter has cerebral palsy and has become very frail in recent years. He used to get out and about St Kilda quite freely, but now he's obviously confined to a wheelchair and a walking frame. So one area that I take Peter down to as his neighbour to just enjoy the outside is the barbecue area, again in the page 4 of the submission. And as you can see, that visual bulk that's going to impact that area as well is really devastating for the likes of, my beautiful friend Peter that just, as I said, had little simple things in life of just going out to a barbecue area and just sitting there having a coffee with him is just going to be taken from him as well. So they're the 2 points that I wanted to bring up with you today. It's just that the quiet enjoyment of a simple thing like getting out into an open space of what the courtyard has been built for. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I now call upon Mark Davies, speaking to item 6.2. Mark, if you could state your name and suburb for the record and then begin.
Mark Davies, St Kilda West, and thank you for letting me speak. You may regret it. It's we're probably the newest resident. We've moved in on January 29th. We're in apartment 29, which is on page 13 of your pack that you have. We couldn't believe that we found this apartment and found it for the price. We thought we were in absolute paradise with the views that we have, the outlook and the common area, which is just a fantastic feature. My partner, unfortunately, is managing a terminal illness, and so life has become very, very different for her with this knowledge. And so moving into this place, she thought she'll see out her days here, and this is going to be fantastic. We didn't know about this plan, despite I rang Strata for any information prior to purchasing, and was given information about the roofing fund, but not this. And the agent didn't let us know either. So we were devastated when we started to get the emails and found out what was going on. Our major concern, obviously, loss of view and potentially loss of value in our apartment. The fact that the pool will be in shade. My partner's really enjoyed using the pool after she comes home from work. It will then be in shade and possibly have increased wind effect as well, which will really seriously reduce her experience there. Our concern, we're not concerned about balconies. We would support balconies. Rooftop terraces is another thing. And our concern about the types of, given that two of these are investment properties, they're not residents. So we're concerned about Airbnb and that sort of person that can come in for a weekend stay and have parties on the rooftops. It's one thing to manage noise, etc., in a common area where there are signs about curfews around. It's another to manage this in someone's private residence when the people are only there for a weekend anyway. Are they really going to take any warning seriously? So how do we get 3 people, of which 2 don't actually live in the property and have no stake in the impediments that this is going to cause? How do they get priority over all the residents that you see before you? All the objections have been done from the people who reside in the property and live there because they want to increase their value and they want to increase their views. Well, we surely have a right to preserve ours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mark. I call upon John Paul Unger, speaking to item 6.2. Sorry if I've mangled your name there. But if you could just state it again and your suburb for the record.
No, you're right. Yeah, John Paul Unger, St Kilda West. And as you can see on page 6, this is the view from... Sorry, just arrange this. From my balcony. And yeah, I moved 6-7 years ago to this property and yeah, enjoy the amazing view that I have and the sunset and the light that I get there. So yeah, extremely disappointed that a small number of residents feel that they can take this amenity away from particularly myself, but everyone else in the community that we live in. And it's very heartening to see that we've all come together in opposition to this. It's really unbelievable that people can think that it's acceptable to take away this view and light into my property, but also into the common area, and with no actual clear benefit to them apart from a garden or a balcony at the top of their property. It seems like it's an ill thought out design that could be looked at much more sympathetically to the other residents. So I would ask that we push back, and it's not to say that people can't develop their property. I think there's lots of opportunity to develop, but in a way that's sympathetic and strengthens the community that we have here currently. And it's a disappointing day, I think, that we all have to come in here to lobby against this, and the 3 owners, as other people have commented, who don't, 2 of them don't live in the properties, haven't actually kind of worked with the community that we are to look at what we can do to make it a thriving community rather than one which would be lessened by this building. So I obviously want to object to this in the strongest possible ways. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon Walter Futschik, speaking to item 6.2. Walter, if you could state your name and suburb for the record,
sure,
please.
Walter Futschik, Albert Park. I have two apartments, apartment 6 and apartment 20 in the facility. Page 14 refers to a photo out the window and how badly that would be affected as far as the view is concerned. But can I throw an analogy at you? You've got 59 kids in a classroom, we've got 59 apartments. 3 of the kids want to play a game and the other 56 don't. What the hell are we doing here, even talking about this whole situation? Seriously, it's ridiculous. It's a beautiful family atmosphere in the apartments, and because 3 people want to do something that they're not allowed to do effectively, we're all wasting time, including yourselves. A number of councillors have gone out to have a look at the apartments, and I noticed in one of the documents I read that the impact was going to be minimal of this development. Well, could I ask, when the councillors vote on this, that those who haven't visited the apartments abstain? Because only the ones that have been there and seen the facility really know what the impact's going to be. Thank you.
I now call upon Sean Granger, also speaking to item 6.2. Thank you, Sean. If you could state your name and suburb, please.
Hi, I'm Sean Granger from St Kilda West. I'm a resident and owner at the courtyard, and I've been there for a number of years. One of the reasons I bought into the building was due to the unique design and the community that it offered. And as you can see in the document itself, page 2, you can see the building was designed to allow maximum enjoyment for all residents, allowing maximum sunlight, open space and connection to the foreshore and the bay, both from your apartment and also while using common areas, including the pool, barbecue areas and also common walkways. In the last few years, I've spent a considerable amount of time and money and using a brilliant architect to redesign my apartment to allow me to be more connected to the foreshore itself and allow more light into my apartment. Since then, based on these new plans though, and this is why I like to object to the plans, one, as Walter's mentioned, this is not a minor alteration, this is a major change to our building. And it's not actually consistent with the rest of the design of the actual building itself. The additional story in particular, and I personally will suffer from this, will create a barrier between the south-east north wings and the bay due to the bulky addition and the privacy screens, and it'll make us feel more like we're in a prison. It'll also have impacts to the natural light that's currently enjoyed in the barbecue area and the pool area at a number of times of the year. Especially when we come home at the end of the day, the sunlight will be gone for us to enjoy these areas. I understand that the building the DDO states that they're there to protect and enhance the key views to and from the St Kilda foreshore and to encourage the provision of space between individuals' buildings and adjoining sites. But these plans, with them extending up, do complete opposite of that and instead de-enhance the views by removing them from a number of us. A number of you visited my property in particular and you saw the impact that makes to me personally, not only from an aspect but also from a property value as well, considering I've spent a huge amount of money investing into the community of my building and enhancing my property.
Sean, I'll ask you to come to the end, please.
Yep. I understand that the Port Phillip is a growth zone. I believe the application doesn't fit that though, as this building has a diversity of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments already, so they're not adding to any diversity in the area. The two of the 3 townhouses don't even live on site, and their selfish attempt to make money at the cost of impacting 80% of other owners. I thank you for your time and hope you consider my objection in making your decision tonight.
Thank you. I call upon Parul Katamal, speaking to item 6.2. Is Parul here? Have I managed to get the name so wrong that we may have to move on? I call upon Ian Tanner, speaking to item 6.2. Ian, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please.
Ian Tanner, St Kilda West, Unit 5 North Tower. The light, shadowing and overlooking issues impact Unit 5 as they do other units. But these have already been covered, so I'll make no further reference to those. If you take a look at page 17 of the profile document, you will see that Unit 5 sits opposite the gable end of the townhouses, and the view out of the lounge, kitchen and dining room and balcony is at the brick gable end of that townhouse. What this picture doesn't show is that just below this is actually the entrance to the underground car park, and this wall actually goes down at least probably another storey. To the left of this picture, you would see the entrance to the underground car park. Now, I know the council is aware that Beaconsfield Parade is a very busy vehicular artery, and it creates a great deal of noise because several years ago the council was successful in reducing the amounts of traffic on Beaconsfield Parade. But the traffic today still causes quite a lot of noise. And the current design of this entrance and the gable ends and the north tower actually tends to suck in the noise. It reverberates between the gable end and the north tower and amplifies it as it rises. Of course, there's very little could be done about that. However, if this extension goes ahead, it will raise, obviously, the roof or the wall of the townhouse, and I'm pretty certain that is likely to increase the current noise that's amplified today. With this noise being increased, it will have a negative impact on the enjoyment of our unit, possibly to such a degree that will force us to move. Therefore, I request that the council rejects this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I call upon Mitul Shah, speaking to item 6.2. Mitul, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Mitul Shah from St Kilda West. Thank
Mitul,
you.
if you could speak directly into the microphone, it might come through a bit better.
Yeah, hi. My name is Mitul Shah from St Kilda West. Thank you all the councillors for your time today. Well, I moved in 5 years back in the courtyard. As the name suggests, it's a courtyard. So I have a family of 4 with 2 growing kids. They enjoy going into the pool area. Now, just consider they come by 3:30, 4 o'clock from the school, and then there's this townhouse bulky new story, and there is no sunlight on the pool. They will not be able to enjoy the pool area. They will not be able to enjoy the open space. We recently had pandemic strict restrictions, so the courtyard was the place where my son could have a little bit of extra light, extra outing. Imagine if this situation comes back in future. Where will my son go? Where will my family go? It's been just an enjoyment for the 3 townhouses, out of which 2 are tenants, 1 is only the resident there. So they're not concerned about what the actual life in the courtyard is. They just want build their property and just sell it off or something like that. Apart from that, wind is a major issue it's opposite to the beach. Wind tunneling will be a major issue. My unit 10 is in the north wing at the rear side. So all the wind which comes in, there is no exit path to that wind because there is a north wing, east wing and the tall south wing. So it circulates quite a lot in that, and there have been other issues as well. With the new story from the townhouse, the wind will circulate more further in, and it will cause more effects, which will be detrimental to the building as well. It's a 70s building with a basement, which is having their own issues. So adding a story on top of the townhouses, which is right on top of the basement, is going to further deteriorate the conditions. So apart from that, there'll be a lot of visual, like I bought an apartment looking at the situation, what it was. And after starter said that no, there should be no external changes. Now the three townhouses comes up with a big plan of an external changes. This is against what the rest 59 units would be doing and what just 3 units would be doing. So it will be totally injustice for the 59 units compared to what 3 units will be, just making a big mockery of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitchell. I call upon Catherine Roediger, speaking to item 6.2 as well. Catherine, if you could state your name and suburb for the record and then continue on.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kate Roediger, St Kilda West. I would like to start by thanking everybody who came out to actually have a look at our homes and see how this affects us. I understand that the agenda paper in front of you is an accurate representation of the materials provided to you, but I would like to dispute the accuracy of the materials provided to you. I would like to disagree on the point that this is a minor redevelopment that's been gone through by quite a number of other people. We consider this to not be a minor redevelopment. Secondly, I dispute the statements in the materials that were provided to Council for the basis of this agenda paper about the visual bulk of this. One of the statements made in there is that it has been done sympathetically, that gaps would allow for some engagement still with the foreshore. This is not true for 2 of the 3 towers. So 2/3 of the properties affected being at 45 degrees from the either ends, there will be no gaps whatsoever. And finally, I would like to dispute the statement in the agenda paper that the courtyard is not architecturally unique. Any of you who have come out to visit know that it is architecturally unique, and that that's why so many people are here today, to try and preserve it in the manner that is currently. I'd like to move on to an issue of protocol and planning and procedure. That this has come to the Council before it's gone to the OC has distressed everybody in the courtyard. We feel bullied. We feel that bringing the planning before you, before it's brought to us, takes away any room for some sort of negotiation. In my objection to this, I noted that I would be quite happy for the Juliet balconies to go ahead, that I'd be quite happy for the study to put in. A number of other people have mentioned that they're quite open to redevelopment. But we will be presented, if the Council approves this, we will be presented with a fait accompli, an all or nothing proposition which takes away any opportunity for us to negotiate an outcome that is agreeable to everybody living in this community.
Catherine, I'll ask you to come to the end, please.
I'd like to end then with a question. I understand that anybody can bring something forward to Council, but I'd like to know whether the Council will consider making a change to procedure, making approval from residents groups where relevant, a condition of receiving approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay. I call upon Shelley Roberts, speaking to item 6.2. And Shelley, if you could state your name and suburb for the record and then continue on, please.
Shelley Roberts. I live in Melbourne CBD. I'm not a resident of this complex. I've had the great privilege, though, of working with several people in the building to enhance their apartments. Although this building is not heritage listed, the courtyard is an exemplar 1970s building, and the so described modern twist will alter irretrievably a relatively intact architectural concept. Whilst the additions to the 3 dwellings considered in isolation may respond to the planning policy framework, the proposal fails to properly address the detriment to the other buildings and 59 other households which comprise the courtyard. The courtyard was designed as a community to benefit all 62 households, and the proposal seeks to benefit only 3, a design strategy clearly against the egalitarian design intent of the courtyard. The proposed development of the courtyard townhouses goes against the spirit of the initial groundbreaking design ethos, that of a community coming together to share the great location, great views and amenity offered by the central courtyard containing the pool and barbecue area. The architectural language of the original development was designed to be coherent and bring together all 4 building types as one whole complex. The use of brick, a sustainable building material, will be lost when rendered and painted finishes are applied. Instead, turn a sustainable building, both culturally and materially, into a high-maintenance nightmare. The proposed gain in amenity to 3 residents comes at a terrific loss of amenity to the remaining 59 residences. The proposal doesn't consider the potential impact on the other 3 buildings in the courtyard, with overshadowing, wind impact on the pool area, noise impact on the residents both in and around the pool area, and the structural impact on the development. And I don't think anyone has properly addressed that, because the buildings all float over a car park. The proposed development, whilst wanting to create an enjoyable place for the 3 residents, will be at the expense of the other 59 residences. In closing, I would like to add that the courtyard, in its existing forms, maintains the original architectural integrity of its time, and it's a rare example where bricks and mortar can form a living, breathing community, as has been evidenced by everyone's presentations tonight. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Shelley. I call upon Rebecca Rosa, speaking to item 6.2. Is Rebecca present? No. I'll move on then and call upon Charlotte Heine, speaking to item 6.2. Charlotte, if you could state your name and suburb for the record, please.
Charlotte Heine, Albert Park. I'm an owner of apartment 50. If you please turn to page 10, you will immediately see that I'm one of the most affected by this development and will, in the future, should it even be considered, be looking at a solid brick wall. My tenants are here at the moment, and they're very happy tenants, and they have already told me they will be leaving should this be, they have been there for many years, but I cannot see how in any way any tenant or future tenant will be renting in that apartment with that sort of view. I'd actually like to address the councillors of Lake Ward and thank everybody who's been, and I voted you in, actually, to represent ratepayers, renters and the community on a platform of protection of inappropriate development and protection of neighbourhood, inclusiveness and diversity in the area. This planning application is severely affecting loss of amenity and livability of 80% of the courtyard ratepayers, owners and renters, to the greed of 3 units who are using the new Beaconsfield building and planning code to their advantage and to the detriment of the rest of the building. I'm sure this was not the intention of the planners, that these laws would impact so many for the benefit of so few. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Charlotte. I now call upon Brian Peters, who's listed here as the applicant, speaking to item 6.2.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
And thank you for the council to give me the time to talk to our application.
Brian, if you could state your name and suburb.
Sorry, Brian Peters, Malvern East, and an owner of Unit 2 in the complex. I'm here representing the other two owners. It's not my intention to talk to the relative merits of our application, but rather to talk to the intent of what we sought. When we were advised a couple of years ago that we had total responsibility for our structure, including the roof, we knew that, and we wanted to make some changes. We knew that that was a complex thing. It was a complex thing to do with the Owners Corp regs. It was a complex thing with the planning, etc., etc. And we sought some good advice. We sought some legal advice which provided us the protocol or the process by which we should go, and our interpretation of the rules were that we needed to go to the Owners Corp with something that had a permit to it, because it was useless to go to the Owners Corp without a permit. So we did that. We also engaged a conservative architect to look at a design that was sympathetic to the buildings around and also the precinct as well. And then, I guess lastly, and probably as important, we engaged planners who were going to give us advice about the right sort of changes that we could make, and also for that to be in keeping with the strategy and the regulations to do with planning and structure. The 3 units have been held for a number of years, and in fact, one of the units was a resident for a number of years, and they had to move out for family reasons. The others are owner-occupiers. We've held our unit from 2013. It's our clear intent for us to move into the unit and retire there. I just need to get my 25-year-old son to move out from home, but I'm not sure that that's going to work.
So Brian, if you could come to the end, please.
The improvements that we're making are in, and I'd refer the council to its own report in terms of the relativity and appropriateness of the development, and I commend that to you. And I also commend the next speaker, who I believe is our planner, Damien. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I now call upon Damien Isles, who I believe is speaking on behalf of the applicant for item 6.2, virtually. Damien, are you with us?
I am. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Damien Isles. I'm a partner of Hanson Partnership, and we act on behalf of the 3 owners who are the subject of the application before the council laws. Mayor and councillors, thank you for the chance to speak. Tonight really is about the planning merits of this application, which are really well ventilated by the officer in a really comprehensive assessment. I have listened to the 15 parties and we've read the 70 objections. We understand the concerns that have been raised, but we disagree fundamentally with the severity of those. Fundamentally, the site and planning context have this building, or these 3 buildings, as 2-storey townhouses within a complex of 4 and 9-storey apartments. The site is over 4,000 square metres. It is on land within the residential growth zone where expectations for development up to and including 4 storeys exist, as well as a DDO that sets a height expectation at 16.5 metres or 5 storeys, much higher than the proposal before you, which seeks to increase the ridgeline height of the roof by 1.5 metres. It seeks to make renovations to the 3 townhouses not dissimilar to some of the investments that the objectors have made to their own apartments. And it should be fair and equitable for these landowners to do that. It is their proprietary right to act on land that they own and indeed occupy. If we look at the council officer's recommendation, there's a number of conditions. We have no issue with those. We're happy to move the balconies back 4 centimetres or 40 millimetres as recommended. We can screen Unit 1 to protect views of the courtyard, and there's some things we can do with materials that address internal referrals. Of the issues that have been raised, in terms of height, the building is well below both the zone and overlay requirements at 9.8 metres. The bulk, we say, has been managed really carefully. The 3 extensions are broken up. They're less bulky than the 4- and 9-storey apartment buildings that sit and form this development. The additions will allow light and they'll try to share views, and we appreciate that a loss of views is really untenable for some of the existing residents. But this isn't a planning concern. The DDO doesn't allow a retention of views. View sharing is a relevant proposition, and really the officer deals with this question quite fairly. The focus for views is on the public realm and views to and from the foreshore.
Damien, can you please come to the end?
That's not an issue. In terms of shadowing, we comply with Res Code. There's no additional shadowing at the Equinox on the swimming pool. Overlooking's managed. Wind impacts have been overstated. And in terms of materials, we feel that this is a proposal that can be readily supported. Thank you very much for your time and a fair hearing this evening.
Thank you, Damien. So that is all of the people who are speaking in person and virtually. There are a further 9 submissions to be read out on behalf of members of the public. I'll just note, though, for the members of the public who are unfamiliar with our process here, that when we actually get to the item the items that people have been coming to speak about in the agenda, councillors may ask questions of applicants or objectors or officers then. So we've received a further 9 submissions to be read out on behalf of members of the public. I'll call the name of each member of the public and refer to the General Manager of Development, Transport and City Amenity to read a summary of the submissions. The first one from Adrian Jackson.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Adrian Jackson states, following on from the fire in the western suburbs on the 2nd of December 2020, where a couple and a baby died, does Port Phillip City Council have fire safety and fire exit regulation in place for future new modern 2-storey townhouses? Are Council aware that most townhouses only have one set of centrically located stair and no other escape route? Should upper windows be able to be opened and not sealed? What is the Council Planning Department going to do about this potential problem? To reinforce my question below of 10th of December 20 on new townhouses, another townhouse fire today in Glen Waverley with no escape route and 4 people perished. And the Age Online article today, 10th of January 21, said many local Glen Waverley townhouses have only one exit.
Mr. Borg.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Mr. Jackson. This is technically a building legislation question, not a planning question, but often the two processes are confused. And there's some crossover between the two pieces of legislation, so I believe we can answer it in this forum. The Victorian legislation makes a clear distinction between a planning permit issued under the Planning Environment Act and a building permit issued under the Building Act 1993. Planning and building approvals are subject to different and completely separate approval processes. A planning permit authorises a change in the use of land and or development of land required by the planning scheme. When we refer to development through the planning process, it often refers to alterations of the external appearance of a building. It does go a little bit further in some instances to include demolition. When we ask for materials and finishes through a planning permit process, often as conditions, they're really to ensure consistency with a streetscape character or a heritage overlay, but not necessarily in relation to fire safety. It's a building permit that authorises the construction and demolition of a building or structure if it complies with the building regulations or the Building Act 1993 and the Building Code of Australia, which is referred to as the BCA. This covers matters of siting, etc., and talks about dealing with adjoining property during construction, structural adequacy, light ventilation, drainage. The building permit process was deregulated back in 1992 from my recollection, and private building surveyors can issue permits just as council's municipal building surveyor can. Going back to the Building Control Act, that's really where the consideration of fire safety and fire exits exist. The current BCA, as it is, does not require exits from townhouses, nor does the code specify the location of stairs relative to proportions of a dwelling. So upper floor windows serving habitable rooms are required to be openable for natural ventilation. There is no requirement to provide a means of escape from those openable windows. The building regulations prohibit a building surveyor to request something more than what the legislation requires. If these things need to be changed, we'd need to go to the Australian Building Codes Board and the Building Regulatory Advisory Committee, but there's no mechanism for council to insist this. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Borg. So that was the one question we have from the public. We have a number of statements on all on item 6.2, 343 to 345 Beaconsfield Parade. So there's a statement from Jacqueline Ingram.
Through you, Chair, Jacqueline Ingram writes, we strongly object due to the impact on the amenities and overall enjoyment of the common area currently enjoyed by all residents, shadowing over the barbecue and pool area due to the increased height, are concerned about any study on the wind tunnel that will be created by these building changes. The overall design on the building will be changed. The proposed plans do not appear to take the current architectural design. Our unit will now feel blocked in and our view greatly impacted due to the proposed height. We feel sunlight currently enjoyed on our balcony will be greatly affected. We are concerned about any potential structural changes that could impact on the downstairs car park. Has there been any study done on this? And if there are any future issues, will this be the responsibility of the units doing the proposed structural changes?
Thank you. Abraham James.
I object to the planning application as it is inappropriate for the overall configuration of the building and it will affect the views of my unit 46/343 Beaconsfield Parade and most of the other 49 units quite dramatically and in some cases completely obliterate their view.
Melanie Pakel.
Melanie writes, I wish to object to planning application 327/2020. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to emphasise the devastating effects that the townhouse development would not only have on my home, but also on that of 80% of my neighbours. As you can see in the provided images, the sheer bulk of the proposed works will significantly impact my views. The enormity of this work at the centre of the apartment block will hide the beauty of the eastern front, creating a feeling of entrapment. There's potential to reduce the afternoon sunlight into the eastern and southern apartments as well as the pool area. As a first-time owner, the communal feel of this property was most appealing to me. The courtyard building thrives itself on community social feel. At the risk of increased wind and shadow, there is no doubt that the works will have a negative impact on the amenity and overall enjoyment of the common areas of the barbecue and pool. The dynamics of the infrastructure would dramatically affect the visual aspect of the building, disconnecting the apartment and the townhouse owners, not only by means of behaviour but also visual disconnection.
Sam Kaplan.
Sam writes, the Planning Committee report is deficient in its assessment of shadowing of the common areas of the property, including the pool barbecue area. Under section 10.4, page 68 and page 69, shadowing is identified as a relevant consideration along with internal privacy and overlooking, as all three relate to amenity. While internal privacy and overlooking are assessed on page 69, there is no assessment of shadowing. Attachment 1, the advertised plans, page 11, demonstrate significant additional shadowing of the common barbecue. This impacts on the amenity of all the other apartments in the block. One of the many negative impacts this proposal would have on enjoyment and amenity of the residents. I have lived here for over 5 years and would be very disappointed if the interest, enjoyment and amenity of the other owners' residents were sacrificed to the benefits of the owners of the 3 townhouses.
Amber Moore.
Amber writes, heritage protected building purchased by a developer with the sole intention of demolishing it, knowing it was protected. VCAT did not grant the developer a demolition permit. The building is capable of preservation. The state government is introducing tough new laws to prevent developers benefiting from neglect of heritage buildings and illegal demolition.
I think I'll just clarify that that statement seems obviously for item 6.1 rather than item 6.2. But moving on, Gillian Watt.
Gillian writes, I strongly object to the proposed development as I feel it will have a significant impact on my visual outlook, open space and enjoyment of living in a well-designed complex. The appearance and bulk of the proposed development will create a boxed-in effect from my level 1 balcony and loss of any open space beyond. Consideration does not appear to have been given to the impact on our existing architectural design, visual aspect and enjoyment of all amenities and views. The courtyard complex has been my home for over 14 years. As I am now in my retirement years and spend considerable hours on my balcony, I feel that the proposed development will impact greatly on both my outlook and enjoyment of open space and well-being. I would therefore hope that consideration would be given to my objection.
Anna Summers.
A summary of Anna Summers' submission. I do not object to this application without reservation. I have been an owner of the apartment since 1983 and an owner-occupier for all of that time. I'm extremely concerned about the proposed roof deck area, as can be seen from photographs taken from the north wing. Any further additions of a box-like design would totally destroy the integrity of the complex. My main concern is the very close proximity of the roof deck areas to my apartment. Utilisation of this proposed area when inhabited will cause environmental noise pollution and deprivation of privacy, which I'm concerned about. If planning approval is granted, the proposed roof deck will be utilised for parties and noisy affairs, including drinking, particularly as 2 of the townhouses are tenanted. Another matter which is paramount consideration is that with more and more people working from home, peace and quiet is important. The courtyard complex is a unique design on Beaconsfield Parade. It has character totally of its own, and any destruction of that character would bring about a devaluation of the complex design. The proposed construction clearly appears to be to the total detriment of the aesthetics of the courtyard complex. With the proposed enlargement of the townhouses, the basis of the number of persons occupying these townhouses should be considered. The proposed rendered finishes will not be in character or design with the present construction and appearance of the courtyard complex and bring about an undesirable addition to the rest of the building. The additions will change the entire facades. I question whether this is for speculative development. Obstruction to views and decreases of values are concerned. The townhouse occupiers seem to be doing their own thing. There's disconnection with the building, so that it does not appear to blend in with the rest of the building. When and what is proposed with the lot boundaries, including future maintenance requirements, is not clear. 80% of the units will be impacted by the visual bulk of the townhouse additions, as well as the common property. Raises boxed-in effect again. The impact on the microclimate, in particular around the swimming pool and barbecue areas, with the proposed construction preventing cooling winds and making this area too hot in summer. And the wind study does not appear to be provided. And the proposed construction will result in overshadowing at different times of the day, impacting pool and barbecue. And I query why the planning application was made directly to council prior to approval being sought from the body corporate.
And finally, Keja Shah.
Keja Shah writes, in addition to objection, currently 1 out of the 3 townhouses is owner-occupied. As owners are living themselves, there is clearly financial consideration and may impact on rental cost property values of the rest of the 59 unit holders. Despite Owners Corporation objection, misuse of councillor time, resources, along with the rest of the 59 unit holders. The townhouse owners are themselves not going to use this property. Everyone purchased units based on the current situation as is basis. Such an application should be rejected, else they can sell townhouses and buy new properties based on their own new needs. Tomorrow, every other unit will come up for their individual expansion plans. This is why some people buy and sell properties. I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Lily. So that comes to the end of the public question time and submissions. So we now move on to the next item on the agenda, item 5, councillor question time. Councillors, do you have any questions not related to the specific items for which we will have questions? No, I imagine all your questions are directly related to the items we're discussing tonight, which makes a lot of sense. So we'll move on to item number 6, presentation of reports. So starting with 6.1, 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. Councillors, are there any questions of the officers or objectors or applicants in relation to this report? No questions for 1 Victoria Avenue. If not, then we have an officer's recommendation. Would somebody like to move this or something different? Councillor Bond, we'll run a mic down to you. That's not going to, yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to move an alternative motion, and that is a motion for refusal of the application. The motion reads 3, recommendation notice of refusal. 3.1, that the responsible authority, having caused the application to be advertised and having received and noted the objections, issue a notice of refusal to grant a permit. 3.2, that the notice of refusal be issued for the demolition of the existing building and the construction of a 3-storey building plus basement, comprising as of right food and drink premises and a 9-suite residential hotel, together with reduction in car parking requirements for the food and drink premises at 1 Victoria Avenue, Albert Park. 3.3, that the refusal be based on the following grounds. 1, the proposed demolition of this significant graded heritage building is contrary to Council's Heritage Policy Clause 22.04, which requires such buildings to be retained and conserved. 2, that the architectural quality of the proposed building does not achieve sufficient design excellence so as to justify demolition of the existing significantly graded building on the site and does not positively support the heritage significance of the Albert Park Village Precinct or the heritage overlay area. 3, the proposal would be contrary to the Heritage Overlay Clause 43.01 under the Port Phillip Planning Scheme, as it will adversely affect the significance of the heritage place.
Thank you. Councillor Bond has moved. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Consolo to second. Councillor Bond, I will ask you to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. This is quite straightforward for me. I think we had a report done last time this came to us which showed that this building is sufficiently structurally sound that all or parts of it could be retained and incorporated into some new proposed development. I haven't seen anything in these reports from the officers provided to us today to change that. We take our heritage quite seriously here in the city of Port Phillip. I think we were one of the first municipalities in Melbourne back in the old city of St Kilda days to have heritage overlays over large sections of our municipality, and as a result we have managed to varying degrees protect large portions of our municipality from overdevelopment. And it's because we are quite strict. We make it we set the bar high for people to be able to alter or change or remove or demolish either heritage buildings or significantly graded or contributory graded heritage buildings in our municipality. And we do that for a reason, because we have such well-preserved neighbourhoods, especially around Albert Park, Middle Park, St Kilda West and various other areas, St Kilda, South Melbourne. What we have here is a proposal, and if this was an empty site or a blank somewhere else in the municipality, look, this is an average building, it would probably be approved by us. But as Councillor Brand pointed out, or former Councillor Brand pointed out earlier when he was speaking, that VCAT determined that, yes, we would consider demolition of a significantly graded heritage building, but what replaces it must be of such a high standard and of such excellence that it would warrant the demolition of a significantly graded building. And I don't think we've got that in this instance. So this is quite an easy decision to make. We urge the applicant to look at some ways of preserving this building, to look at some ways of incorporating all or parts of this building into whatever he proposes to do on this site. So on that basis, I urge my fellow councillors to join with me and refuse this application, and hopefully something comes back to us at some point in time in the future that does respect the heritage of the existing building on this site, and we can look at a proposal that reflects that, and look at assessing something else that gives pays good attention to the heritage that we fought so hard to preserve for so long, that we can't just let it slip on an instance such as this.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Consolo, would you like to speak to the motion? It's always on.
It's always on. Okay. All right. Public speaking's not my forte, but I echo a lot of the comments made by Councillor Bond, that it is our responsibility to conserve, and that this building, as being a significant graded building, shouldn't be demolished. Based on the VCAT statement, very interesting outcome there, that they're putting the demolition seems to be more suitable if there's a replacement building, but how are we judging that excellence in this example here, like Andrew said, would be appropriate maybe on a site that was empty, but it is not a suitable replacement for what's there. I think I'll leave it there because it's a long night so far.
Thank you, Councillor Consolo. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Oh. Councillor Sirikoff.
Hi, everyone. I'll be supporting the amendment to this motion. I think it's very important that Council respects and upholds the heritage policy of Port Phillip. It is also important that we support and retain our heritage buildings and the heritage facades of our streetscapes, which make Albert Park Precinct and also other heritage precincts in Port Phillip so important and so unique. And One Vic Avenue is one of those significant heritage buildings which I don't think should be demolished.
Thank you, Councillor Sirikoff. Any other councillors wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Clark?
Is this working?
Intermittently, though.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Up to you.
So I'd like to thank the speakers who have come in tonight and appreciate their many views. Not working? Okay. Okay. I'd like to thank the speakers who have come here tonight and appreciate their many views about this development. I note that VCAT have made a ruling on this and supported the demolition despite differing expert opinions. The council spent a great deal of money going to VCAT previously with QCs and expert witnesses. The building has been empty for 2 years, and taking this back to VCAT will be very costly for council and residents. Perhaps the laws around heritage buildings need to be changed, but we are here now. Council officers have recommended a notice of decision to grant a permit, and I'm supporting their recommendation, and for this reason I won't be supporting the motion.
Councillor Clark, can I just confirm, are you foreshadowing a motion if this one should fail?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, good to know. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, I will put this motion... Oh, sorry, I'll allow Councillor Bond to close. Sorry, Councillor Bond. So I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? All those opposed? Any abstains? Okay. Councillor Pell, are you calling for a division? Okay. I will put the motion again under division. All those in favour? Councillor Crawford, Councillor Consolo, Councillor Bond, Councillor Sirikoff, Councillor Baxter, Councillor Copsey, Councillor Martin, Councillor Pearl. All those against? Councillor Clark. That motion is carried. Moving on to the next item, 6.2, 343 to 345, Beaconsfield Parade, St Kilda West. So first off, councillors, are there any questions of the officers, applicants or objectors in relation to this report? Councillor Crawford.
I guess I wanted to ask a couple of questions in regard to process.
Who are you asking, Councillor Crawford?
Probably Mr Borg. If we were to approve this tonight or not approve it, is there still legal options for the residents through the Owners Corporation? I'm a bit confused about where the legality lies. I mean, just because we approve it or whatever we decide to do, does it mean that it can't be stopped? If we were to approve it, would it mean that the Owners Corporation cannot stop it, is my question.
Mr Ball.
Through you, Mr Chair. Through you, Mr Chairman. It's always a tricky one. I'm not privy to what the legal advice has been in relation to the Owners Corp information and what standing they have in relation to this building. I can say to you very clearly, though, that we need to look at it from a planning perspective using planning legislation. It's not uncommon that you may actually be able to get a planning permit, but you also still need building permits, subdivision permits. You may not get those. So if they've gone through a situation where they have applied for a planning permit and they do need separate Owners Corporation requirements, they still need to go through that test. So even if council approved it, the Owners Corporation doesn't approve it, it doesn't go ahead.
So just to clarify, we can make no reference to that tonight. We're just voting on the building code or the legislation.
The purpose of tonight's meeting is to deal with the planning application only.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Crawford? Yep.
While I've got the microphone. There was some reference to, I guess it's probably, I'm not sure if it's Mr Beard or Mr Borg, to the fact that it's built above a car park, and will these additions add any structural stress? Is that at the building permit stage, or, yeah, just clarifying,
Mr Borg,
please.
Through you, Mr Chairman, the structural matters are a building permit process, so not a planning permit process. We will assume that the building and structure can be put on that property. Often the architects would work hand in hand with building surveyors and actually have it prepared as one overall application and be mindful of what the structural integrity of that car park would be. So, but it's not a relevant matter under the planning legislation.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Consolo?
So is this my opportunity to speak to ask a question of the applicant or of the objectors as well, the speakers?
You may.
Okay. I guess following on to Councillor the Mayor's questions about the body corporate, although it's not in our realm, maybe some clarification if it is understood from your end how the process will proceed with the body corporate rules.
Councillor Consolo, is there a particular objector you'd like to direct the question to?
Whoever's willing to. Sandy, or would you be prepared to answer that? Any volunteer.
Sorry, I just need to find an email.
If you need some time to answer that question, we could do another question in the meantime. Is that convenient? It looks like it might be. Do any councillors have any other questions in the meantime? Councillor Copsey?
Thanks. My question was, there was a reference during some of the objector statements to shadowing as part of an amenity consideration, and my question to the planners is whether that is taken into account as part of the normal shadowing assessment of res code, or is that a separate shadowing requirement? And can overshadowing, particularly of open space, or in this case communal open space, be considered a separate amenity ground?
Mr. Borg?
I'll refer that to Mr. Beard, but I will pass over the microphone to him.
Musical chairs with the microphones tonight, people.
Through the chair, it is a res code assessment. Shadowing, or res code is silent really on whether the shadowing is public space or communal space. Generally speaking, it is mostly 99.9% of the time it's an assessment of private shadowing, but res code clause 55 does talk about shadowing of, it just says open space areas. So it is a broad amenity consideration under res code, and that shadowing assessment takes place from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the res code way at the September equinox.
Thank you, Mr. Beard. Was it who's happy to answer Councillor Consolo's question?
Hi, it's Judy Timoshenko. The townhouse owners are part of the Owners Corporation. There is only one Owners Corporation on this plan of subdivision. The owners of the townhouses are subject to approval by the Owners Corporation. The Owners Corporation does have jurisdiction to refuse their development through the Owners Corporation Act. Should Council VCAT approve the application, the Owners Corporation will still have the ability to refuse the proposal.
Thanks very much for the clarification. Councillors, do we have any further questions on this item? Councillor Bond, right in the end there. Oh, it's coming around.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. I'd like to move an alternative motion.
Oh, sorry, just procedurally, I was still asking for questions, but just to confirm, there are no further questions. If not, we have an officer's recommendation. Would someone like to move that, or it sounds like you might be wanting to move something different?
I might be wanting to move an alternative motion. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. The alternative motion is exactly the same as the original motion with two changes. The changes are to item 3.3.2, delete the line additional living space and roof terrace so that it reads that a notice of decision to grant a permit be issued for the construction and carrying out of building and works, including a rear addition and front balconies. So it takes away the living space and roof terraces to units 1 to 3, 343 to 345 Beaconsfield Parade, West St Kilda. The other change is to the amended plans. It adds in, on point 1, it adds in a dot point D, deletion of the upper level roof decks and associated retreats and roof forms.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Bond's motion? I'm not sure who went up there first, but I'll say Councillor Sirikoff because it was the first one that I saw. Okay, Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much, Councillor Baxter. What this alternative motion does, as you've probably worked out, it removes the roof decks and it removes the retreats from this proposal. And if the applicant is still inclined to do so, he will get a permit to build his balconies on the front and also to build the other element of his proposal, but it doesn't go up to the two higher building components, which I think caused all of the, or most of the concern with his neighbours. As I think has been made clear, this still needs to get permission from the Body Corp in order for it to proceed. So, the decision we're making here as councillors is probably, to some degree irrelevant because, we could approve anything on this site. It still needs to get through a Body Corp, which, given the volume of people who came to speak to us tonight, have very, very strong thoughts on this proposal. It's probably safe to assume. So from a very hard decision, I know councillors have discussed this on a number of occasions, what we do here, and there are a variety of thoughts as to what is and isn't permitted on this site. But I think this alternate recommendation gives the applicant an opportunity to add some features to his building, which may or may not be acceptable to the Body Corp owners corporation of that building. A couple of speakers tonight said they would be okay with these particular aspects being added to the building. So, I propose to give a permit to add those elements, but take away the ones that cause most concern to most of the residents here. So, hoping for some sort of compromise between what they would like and what caused concern. And obviously, it's pretty clear that the Body Corp have the final say on this. So, it's up to the applicant to negotiate an outcome with his Body Corp, and they will be the final decision makers here, not council and not VCAT.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Sirikoff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you for everybody coming tonight. It was very impressive to hear a community come together and support each other on such an important development that could affect all of you. I would like to concur with what Councillor Bond has said, that I hope that with these few changes to the plans that there'll be a good outcome for everybody. But ultimately, the final decision is with the Owners Corporation, and hope that all parties can come together to come to a good resolution so that you have a continuing great community. I'll just from the drawings and visiting the site at various levels, I can see that the proposed development is not of any benefit to the community. It is disappointing that such a development is put forward, and the major impact it would have on surrounding apartments, and and also the reduced livability due to increased visual bulk, and reduced views and reduced openness of the site. But ultimately, the decision will come down to what happens with the Owners Corporation and the applicant and the objectors. I hope it all works out well.
Thank you, Councillor Sirikoff. Would any other councillors wish to speak? Looks like Councillor Pearl would like to speak.
Thanks very much. Thank you to all of you that have come in here.
Councillor Pearl, our tech people have advised we should use these.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody that came in here this evening. In the modern planning world, we're often told that communities that live in apartment buildings lack community and lack spirit, and that definitely isn't the case with your apartment building. We greatly appreciate the time and effort you've put into coming here this evening. We know it's not an easy thing to do, and we greatly appreciate it. These decisions are difficult, particularly for the applicants that come in. It seems offensive to many body corporate type arrangements that people go through a planning process without consulting the group of the body corporate arrangements that buildings sit in, but I have some sympathy in terms of the ones that we've considered beforehand, in that you're quite right in what you're saying as the applicant, that you have to bring some form of logical approved plans to a decision-making forum so a full decision can be made. So I do have some sympathy around that. These processes can be quite traumatic, in some cases, not in this one, but necessarily in this one, but pinning applicants against next-door neighbours, and that's not a good thing to do all the time. So I do have some sympathy for the process. Very happy to support the motion here this evening, in that if the council position is taken to the body corp, I think what is proposed here by Councillor Bond's motion provides some form of workable solution from a council planning point of view that can be presented by the applicant. Ultimately, this system works very well in that the residents of your building will have the final say as custodians of your building. But thank you all for coming here this evening. You've been part of the process, and the process is better because of that. So thank you for your time and for your efforts here this evening, and very happy to support the motion that's been put up by Councillor Bond and seconded by Councillor Sirikoff.
Thank you, Councillor Pearl. Councillor Martin.
First, I'd like to acknowledge the work of Mr Borg and his planning department have given us a very, very detailed recommendation, and I understand the work that's gone into that. I've also listened to the passion of all of the objectors, and I understand where they're coming from. I think the applicant's also coming in good faith. However, I wish there was a system which enabled the applicant and the other residents of the apartment block to get together before they came to council, and that would have meant we wouldn't have meant that Councillor Bond had to show the wisdom of Solomon in coming up with what I think is an excellent compromise solution. And if we adopt Councillor Bond's recommendation, which I'm going to vote for, then we're providing some good advice both to the objectors and to the applicant to get together and come back with a situation which can be a win-win for everyone. So, Councillor Bond, can I commend you on your motion?
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Consolo.
Thank you to the speakers tonight. This has been a distressing process for the residents of this building complex. Thank you for the opportunity to see your property as well. What a wonderful community you have, as demonstrated here today. Although I agree removing the retreat and the roof terrace sounds like a suitable compromise between the applicants and the objectors, I'll be voting against this alternative motion, as the council officer's report outlines the application is compliant within the confinements of the planning rules, and that's what we're here today to vote on. However, there is still a process to go through for this project to be constructed with the body corporate approval to be determined. And I understand from the applicant's submission tonight that they were advised to go through the planning process in order to approach the body corporate. It does seem, though, it could have been a private matter among the owners in this building prior to bringing it into the public realm. I wish the applicants and the objectors the best in mediating a suitable outcome for your wonderful building community.
Thank you, Councillor Consolo. Councillor Crawford.
I actually haven't decided which way I'm going to vote because there's a number of things. As Councillor Consolo said, this does fit under building res code, and that we can't consider view as part of the legislation, which is very difficult because view, as we know, living in this beautiful city is part of the joy of living here. I am really glad to hear that there is another opportunity for this for residents to have another opportunity to refuse this, this is not the end game. I'm very glad to hear that. I do think in a building design like this, being part of the community is as much as important as actually the building design, and because it's not a very nice place to live when you've made a lot of enemies without consulting with your community first. So I'm still deciding on which way I'll vote, but I do think that perhaps the original suggestion of just a balcony to enjoy the view, as the rest of your community likes to do, may be the sensible solution. But I am very glad, as I said, that was clarified that the Owners Corporation still has, no matter what decision we make here tonight, that the Owners Corporation has the final say. So that's you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Copsey.
Thank you. I really do want to thank everybody who's come and spoken with such passion on this topic tonight, and I wanted to speak to explain the reasons for my decision, similarly to Councillor Consolo and Councillor Consolo and we'll see. Our role here tonight is to apply the planning rules, and what we are presented with is an application that is compliant with the rules as they stand in the City of Port Phillip. Therefore, I am going to be, I won't support the amended application. I don't think that it's particularly equitable to take away from an application that does meet the planning rules. And I understand that some people will be very disappointed by that decision. It may be that it goes through in the modified form anyway, but I wanted to speak so that you understood the reasons. The planning scheme needs to apply fairly to everyone. I echo the comments that I think it's regrettable the way this one has come about. I want to thank the residents of the courtyard that I, had not visited before. I really appreciated coming in and seeing the space that you have created, but more importantly, the community that you have created. I understand that these things can be very difficult to navigate, but what I would urge you coming out of tonight, whatever the result, is to remember that you are the reason that that place is a successful place to live. It's because you are obviously a connected and empathetic community. With the applicant coming to us this evening, I agree that they've come in good faith trying to comply with the rules that Council has set out. And whilst those don't always result in outcomes that we all find the ones that we would prefer, I need to apply those fairly to every application that comes through this chamber. So those are the reasons that I won't be supporting this alternate motion. And like the other councillors, I do wish you all the best in working this out in an amicable fashion. I do hope that you'll continue to be a wonderful community for many years to come in this space. Thank you very much for all the effort you've put into speaking to us about this matter.
Councillor Copsey, can I just clarify whether you were foreshadowing another motion?
Well, yes. Should this fail, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Good. Thank you for clarifying. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this motion? If not, I will put this to the vote. So just to be very clear with everyone, this is Councillor Bond's motion. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That motion has carried. Thank you, everybody. And without giving any indication as to my feelings about that vote, it's very nice to hear people in the chamber again. Having online meetings, you would never get a reaction like that from anything. So, all right, we're moving on to the next item. Item 6.3, Statutory Planning Delegated Decisions, October 2020 to January 2021 inclusive. So, councillors, are there any questions of the officers in relation to this report? Not usually. So, if not, councillors, we have an officer's recommendation. We have an officer's recommendation. I have a mover, Councillor Copsey, and a seconder, Councillor Bond. Councillor Copsey, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Bond, would you like to speak to the motion? Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Just as people are leaving, thank you all for coming. It's so empty now. So moving on to the next item, item 8, urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No. Item number 9, confidential matters. Councillors, we have no confidential items, so there being no further business, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you all very much.